back, everybody, to another episode of Early Morning PJ Podcast. Jacob and I are back at it for is our counter here. What is it? Week 8, week 9?
9.
So, just to give you guys kind of a rundown of what we're going to be discussing today.
We do this every week.
The NFL mock draft. Jacob updated his mock
draft
draft
season
for the draft that is actually 2-3 weeks away now. So we'll go over his updated version of that with all the traded picks and stuff that occurred these last couple weeks. And then we'll get into some NBA talk. The NBA is kind of in playoff mode for most of these back-end teams. Some of the last seeds are kind of fighting. This is kind of the long stretch.
The entire East is fighting.
Yeah, this is the stretch of this. We're at the point in the season now. This is the stretch of the season where, teams win. Every game matters now. In terms of playoff seeding, and some of those back-ended seeds that are fighting for a playoff spot. And then we'll get into some MLB talk, and then we'll end things up with a little Trinity sports wrap-up that we've been doing these last couple of weeks. So without further ado, Jason, do you have that mock draft pulled up?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so Jacob, I'll kind of let you take over, and then
we'll kind of get each of our reactions to each pick.
So Jason will kind of read off the pick, and then Jacob and I will discuss. So.
All right, yeah. The first pick, Jacob has Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence. Kind of obvious.
Yeah, I have no disagreement.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about there.
Second pick, Jets taking Zach Wilson.
This mock draft is sort of like a mix between what I think they should do and what they're actually going to do.
Yeah.
And what I think they should do is take Fields. What they're actually going to do is take Zach Wilson. But I don't think Zach Wilson's a bad pick whatsoever. He is a talented quarterback, and he's on the same tier as Fields, in my opinion.
I agree with what Jacob said. In terms of what I think they should do, Fields would probably be my pick. But Wilson is not the worst pick they can make in that scenario. Wilson and Fields kind of share a little bit of the same skill set. I personally just like Fields because he's a little bigger frame. He has a little bigger frame, and he played at Ohio State. He made the college football playoffs the last couple of years. He's seen some NFL caliber
played in the college football playoff with a broken rib. Played the best games of his season.
That just kind of shows you the grit and toughness that he brings along with him. So,
with the third pick, you have the 49ers taking Justin Fields.
Yeah. They'll take probably, hopefully, whoever's left out of Fields and Wilson for that third pick.
I agree with that. Yep.
And then you have Trey Lance going to the Falcons with the fourth pick.
This one I think is a bit controversial because, obviously Matt Ryan is still on the roster and he's playing he's playing well. He's not elite anymore. He's not an MVP anymore. But when you look at the value any player can bring, if Lance pans out to be a great quarterback, he brings so much more value than any other player they could take here. And I think they need to rebuild anyways. They got a new coach in. I think you pick for the future, not just for this year.
I agree with that. And I personally think they're going to take a quarterback. However, I could see them kind of in win-now mode with Matt Ryan being on the back end of his career. Really, I think he's probably got 1 or 2 seasons left in him. Like Jacob said, they're kind of rebuilding. They got a whole new coaching staff in. So I would expect them to take a quarterback. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they took a skill position player.
Pitts.
Somebody like Kyle Pitts. And Trey Lance, I personally like Mac Jones and Kyle Trask a little more than I like Trey Lance. Then again, Trey Lance is still in that top tier. His stats prove it over these last couple years at North Dakota State. He reminds me a lot of,
Cameron Newton.
Cam Newton in college. At the same time, like Carson Wentz. They came from the same school. They were both highly,
touted out of college.
Yeah, and I don't know. We'll see. Carson Wentz led the league in turnovers last year, so that's not probably somebody that he doesn't really want to be compared to.
We'll see Mac Jones in a little bit, too. Some foreshadowing.
You have the Bengals taking Penei Sewell, tackle from Oregon with the 5th pick.
Yeah. Burrow kind of got mauled last year, and his Season ended with with the MCL and an ACL tear. So you need to get him protection with the best lineman prospect in a while.
I don't know how you take anybody but an offensive lineman with this pick. Sewell is obviously the best in the draft when it comes to offensive linemen. There's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If they don't take Sewell here with this pick, if he's available,
some
if he's
people like Pitts.
Board. I mean, Pitts, and who doesn't like Pitts?
Yeah.
Pitts is a guy that any roster would want to have.
Any roster.
Yeah.
Like the Chiefs could use it.
But at the same time, like, you got to think realistically. Your franchise quarterback towards ACL last year, he wasn't even having that bad of a year.
He was having a good year.
He just was surrounded by a terrible team, terrible coaching staff. And, I mean, they had no offensive line, and he paid for it, just like we talked about. And it's inexcusable to not get him some protection. So, yeah.
Jacob, you have your team, the Dolphins, taking Jamar Chase with the 6th pick.
Yeah. We signed Will Fuller in the offseason, and I think with the addition of someone like Jamar Chase, I think our offense could really be good this year. It was probably below average last year. I think you have Devontae Parker, you have Chase, you have Mike Gesicki, and then you have Fuller. I think that's a really good supporting cast for Tua.
I don't disagree with this pick.
And he's my number one receiver, too. I know Peyton disagrees with that. But
I really like Devontae Smith. And, I mean, obviously, that's kind of like a 50-50 when it comes to those two guys, Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith.
They're both great players.
Both great players, very similar skill sets, really almost the identical same player when you look at their career highs and stuff like that. So, with that being said, I could definitely see the Dolphins going after a receiver.
I could see them going after Pitts, too.
I mean,
I've said that for 3 straight picks, but really...
There's really no... I mean, it's not a necessity that they need a receiver with Devontae Parker. And now they got Will Fuller. They got Gesicki to run tight end. They have some good targets for Tua. But with that being said, I think pairing Devontae Parker up with somebody like Jamar Chase that offense would be almost unstoppable.
Assuming Tua progresses, yeah.
Yeah. So I could definitely see Tua was a quarterback that last year he obviously struggled with no receivers.
And a bad offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
who's now out.
I mean, really, I don't see why not go get another receiver and go get another weapon.
It's probably our biggest need anyways.
I mean, I don't know, because...
It's not really an elite pass rusher, I'd say
there's not, well...
I don't.
That's debatable in terms of, like...
I don't think any of the pass rushers are too great in this class.
The Dolphins had a really good defense last year, but they just got rid of
two pass rushers.
Yeah,
Lawson. Traded Lawson.
With the 7th pick, you have the Lions taking Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions could take pretty much anyone, and it would be an improvement. It's a really bad roster. So I think you get a young receiver for whoever your next QB is going to be. Whether that's Goff or not, I don't think it is. But
who do you think it's going to be?
Sam Howell next year in the draft. But I don't know. And their receiving core really isn't that good. They lost Kenny Golladay, lost Marvin Jones Jr. So, I mean, their receiving core is looking shaky. I think you need to improve that.
Just like Jacob said, any player would really help the Lions right now. And it's definitely going to be one of Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith, whichever one is still on the board. We talked about Jamar Chase. The Dolphins taking Jamar Chase with the 6th pick. That would lead to Devontae Smith heading to Detroit. So, yes, I agree with Jacob's pick here.
With the 8th pick, you have Kyle Pitts going to the Panthers.
Probably, honestly, from a personal standpoint, my favorite player in the draft. You look at the Panthers roster, I think Ian Thomas is their tight end, I believe. And they just lost Curtis Samuel.
Well, we haven't talked about this yet, but Darnold too.
Yeah. I was gonna get.
So they're not. Go ahead. I'll let you finish up now.
And so they just lost a weapon in Curtis Samuel, and their tight end spot isn't great. and you just traded for what you're trying to turn into your franchise quarterback. I don't personally think he's it, but if you're going to go for it, you got to go for it. And you got to get him some help, and that starts with an elite weapon in Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, so obviously with the trade that sent Sam Darnold to Carolina, that kind of takes the option away for Carolina taking a quarterback with this pick. Therefore, I think, just like Jacob said, they're going to go out and get him a weapon. Kyle Pitts, obviously one of the best, most athletic skill possession players in this draft. To be able to run a 4.3 as a tight end for your 40-yard dash, that's kind of unreal.
At
when
6'6".
Yeah, when it comes to the size that he brings to the table. So I really think the transition for him, I mean, they could play him at a tight end. It really depends on where he goes.
He
could play him
put him anywhere.
Yeah, you could really put him anywhere. So
put him in the backfield if you wanted to.
He's a good blocking tight end too. So
I think Kyle Pitts will be a top 4 tight end in the league his rookie year.
We'll see. We'll see if he even plays tight end. We'll see what he even shows up on the depth chart. But especially with if he were to go to Carolina, just like you said, Curtis Samuel's gone. DJ Moore's a little injury prone. So they definitely need some guys at the receiver spot, but Kyle Pitts...
He is a receiver.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is an overall weapon, and that's somebody that they're going to target for Sam Darnold.
You have Micah Parsons going to the Broncos with the 9th pick.
Yeah, probably one of the most talented players in the draft. There's some concerns about him not necessarily having to do with football, but he's extremely athletic. Ran a 4.4 flat, I believe, at his pro day, and he makes plays that other players just can't make. And I think the Broncos just need someone that can improve their roster, and that's Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons is an interesting player for me, just because of some of the off-field issues that he's had. He's been known to be a head case. He's been known to, in the locker room, just kind of not being a team player when it comes to off the field stuff. But with that being said, he is flat out one of the fastest linebacker in the draft.
He might be the fastest linebacker in the league next year. Straight up.
Yeah, and the size and speed that he is able to bring to the table, really, he can play anywhere.
Yeah, he could be a pass rusher.
Other than the secondary. Yeah. And I was just going to talk about that. If you could pair Von Miller up with somebody like...
And Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, and Bradley Chubb in that rotation as well. Pair those guys up with somebody like Micah Parsons who could play an outside linebacker, play an inside linebacker maybe. Just like Jacob said, play even a DN.
That's 3 potential... Because Bradley Chubb made the Pro Bowl last year. That's 3 potential Pro Bowl linebackers.
All pros, really. I could definitely see Denver taking Micah Parsons here, but just like Jacob said, I think any position would help that team.
With the 10th pick, you have the Cowboys taking J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina.
My new number 1 corner. Surtain, in my mind, has slipped a little bit after, pro day and reevaluating kind of things about him and how he plays. And this would be Caleb Farley, but Caleb Farley just had back surgery. So he slipped a little bit because of injury concerns. And J.C. Horn is a physical, tough corner. He has the mentality. He has that Jalen Ramsey-like mentality. Not that he's going to be Jalen Ramsey, but he has all the tools. 6'2", too.
I really like J.C. Horn. I just like Jacob said about Surtain, this was going to be where Surtain was going to go. With this, I felt like this is where he was going to end up going. So they're going to take a corner. They have to.
Yeah.
Unless they would play a little keep away from the Eagles once again, just like they did last year with CeeDee Lamb.
I don't think you can do that again.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with the wide receivers.
I think the Giants are
except they just lost Gallup too, so that could play a factor. Except it would kind of be inexcusable at this point after watching their defense last year just play horrifically.
Yeah.
And they need to get a corner. So
potential number one lockdown corner. They
yeah,
haven't had one of those since.
Just like Jacob said, after seeing Surtain's pro day, I kind of lost a little faith in him. I still think he's the second best corner in the draft.
I think he's the third. I want to say he's the third best, but I just can't look past a defensive back getting back surgery. That's really hard for me to look past.
I like J.C. Horn. He's a very physical player, very sizable, and he matches up well with the receivers that he's going to be facing, especially in his own division. So, I like this pick for Dallas.
You have the Giants taking Rashawn Slater, tackle out of Northwestern, for the 11th pick.
Yeah, he's not just a tackle. He can realistically play anywhere on the offensive line, and the Giants' offensive line has been known over the past few years to be terrible. And wherever you need him, he can play. He's very technically sound, strong. He'll do it all for the Giants.
I don't know much about this player, but just like I agree with everything Jacob said about the Giants. So, I'm assuming he's legit. I don't know much about him.
That's fair.
So yeah.
With the 12th pick,
here we go.
You have the Eagles taking Jalen Waddle.
On a team with not too many weapons, you got to get a weapon if you're going to build around Hurts. And I don't think there's a quarterback here that you would take over Hurts. So,
all right. So I'm going to kind of get into this pick without giving my whole heart away, basically. Obviously, if you guys haven't heard the news yet, the Eagles and the Dolphins traded picks. The Eagles now have the 12th pick, obviously, and we went over that a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But that was mistake number one. Mistake number two would be, I've heard this, Jason and I were just talking about this. Mistake number two would be trading up to get a quarterback. That would be mistake number two. And I've heard rumors about that possibly happening, and I would be ashamed to be a fan if that is actually what ends up to be the case.
It's better than taking a quarterback, a leftover remnant, not high first-round talent quarterback at 12. I'll say that much.
And, I love Hurts. I love the ability that he has to run, to escape the pocket. And that's if you look at something that, if you want to, find something that separates Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts from last season, it is by far the ability to escape the pocket. And their offensive line sucked last year. But with that being said, Hurts found a way to deal with that, and Carson Wentz just didn't. Yeah. Wentz couldn't escape the pocket. He tore his ACL, which obviously kind of played a huge role in his ability to run. And Hurts just looked more comfortable out there. And I really want them to give Hurts a shot. I want them to surround Hurts with as much talent as possible to make him be the best player he could possibly be.
I'm not 120% sold on Hurts, but you just can't be stupid. 3 quarterbacks in 3 years is how you kill a franchise. Ask the Broncos.
And Hurts has the potential to be good.
He has upside.
He has all of the upside that you could ask for when it comes to a dual threat quarterback. And in a couple years, I said this before and I'll say it again. In a couple years, the whole NFL league is going to be composed of dual threat quarterbacks.
Look at this draft class.
And the Eagles have one now, so why would you the saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I agree. And something that is
Jalen Hurts is not broke.
Something that is broke is the receiver core.
Yeah. So. And you need to go fix that receiving core by going to get another target. And Jalen Waddle, at this point in time, is realistically going to be the best target that is still on the board with the 12th pick. And Jalen Waddle was Devontae Smith before there was Devontae Smith. And shout out to my dad. He actually said that line a couple days ago when we were discussing this pick. But it's true. Jalen Waddle was the Devontae Smith. He was the playmaker for Alabama before there was Devontae Smith. And I think Jacob and Jason can agree with me here. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They need to go get him.
With the 13th pick, you have the Chargers taking Christian Darrisaw, tackle out of Virginia Tech.
Yeah. I mean, who'd they draft in the first round last year? Justin Herbert. His offensive line wasn't particularly great. They have a good running back in Austin Eckler. So go and get them some help. Darrisaw is a really physical guy. He can play left or right tackle. I think you need to bolster the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree.
You won't have much to say on
that. I had a lot to say about the Eagles pick, so I'm just going to let Jacob cover that.
And you don't the line.
Yeah.
You have the Vikings taking Elijah Vera Tucker, tackle out of USC with the 14th pick.
Yeah, another offensive lineman that isn't just stuck to one position. He can realistically, as well as Rashawn Slater, play every position of the offensive line. And the Vikings offense is another one that needs mostly help on the offensive line. Go get Dalvin Cook, a really good run blocker.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like Brian O'Neill, who is currently the left tackle for the Vikings. He's a Pitt guy. I like him. But that's the only guy I can name on that offensive line.
It's not a good offense.
They're just not good. And Dalvin Cook, just like Jacob said, all-pro running back, arguably the best running back in the NFL. And they're simply not helping him if they don't go out and get an offensive lineman with this pick.
Jacob, you have the Patriots taking Mac Jones with the 15th pick.
Yeah, I'm not too high on Mac Jones, but there's not really too many other needs on the Patriots.
That just kind of shows that you're not too high on Cam Newton either.
I'm not at all. And I think he would be an improvement over Cam Newton. Newton did not play well last year. I think, Belichick has been able to develop multiple quarterbacks, Brissett, Garoppolo, and obviously Tom Brady. And I think with the other needs in mind, I think the biggest upgrade would be Mac Jones at 15.
I like Mac Jones, and I think his ability to throw the ball. If you watch his pro day, he sucked. Flat out, he did not have a very good pro day. But
watch the Eagles take him.
That is something that the Eagles would do.
That would be a disaster.
Then again, Mac Jones is, statistically, throughout his career at Alabama, he put up some of the best numbers ever when it comes to college. Granted, he had Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle as his receivers, and he had a pretty good running back with Najee Harris to combine with those two. But those, the Page, I like Cam Newton. I think obviously he sucked last year. He did not have a very good year. But
all I'm saying
you got to think about he had no help.
As a Dolphins fan, I'm glad they re-signed Cam Newton.
He had no receivers, and yes, he's getting older. Yes, he's kind of losing his legs, although he ran like over 50% of the time last year when he dropped back. But they went out and got him some help. We'll see what he's able to do. Right now, he's their QB1. If they go out and get Mac Jones, that obviously will be a competition for the QB1 spot. I've heard a lot of Patriots fans say that they like Stidham a little more than Cam Newton, and that's kind of a stretch for me to believe. But yeah, I could definitely see Mac Jones being taken and Belichick going out. Belichick was present at Mac Jones' pro day, I think. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how they feel about him.
With the 16th pick, you have the Cardinals taking Christian Barmore, D lineman out of Alabama.
Yeah, they went out and got J.J. Watt, but that's really not enough in a division with Russell Wilson in a division with Matthew Stafford now, and in a division with probably a solid rookie quarterback, you need more pass rush, and they do need help on the D-line.
Yep, I agree.
With the 17th pick, you have Patrick Surtain II, cornerback out of Alabama, going to the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, he fell a little bit from my last mock draft, but the Raiders really do need a corner bad, and unless they go out and get a guy like Richard Sherman, I think this is the most value they could get out of this pick.
This is the first time I've seen or heard Jacob's mock draft, so I mean, Surtain falling to what, 20? That's the 20th. Oh, 17th. I was off a few picks, but that's kind of surprising to me because I think Jacob and I had both discussed Surtain as being a top 10 pick previously on the podcast. So that's kind of interesting. But then again, there's really not many teams this year besides the Raiders and the Cowboys that really need to go out and target some secondary help. But just like Jacob said, rather than going and dropping millions of dollars on a guy like Richard Sherman, who really, I mean, I could see Sherman retiring in 3-4 years just because of his health, and he's been a little injury prone with the 49ers. I'm not sure how much of his career he has left. I really don't think he's going to be signing a long-term deal with anybody this offseason, maybe a one-year deal. So rather than going out and dropping a couple $1 million on a guy like him, Sherman, for a year or two, why not go out and get some young talent with Surtain? So, yeah, I agree with this pick.
You have the Dolphins taking Kwity Paye with the 18th pick.
Yeah, I mean, we need a pass rusher, and whether it's going to be Kwity Paye, Greg Rousseau, even someone like Jason Oweh or Jalen Phillips, we really do need a pass rusher alongside, the rest of our defense, which is solid, but we just lost 2 pass rushers in the offseason, and I think Paye is the best one on the board.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know if he's like the best on the board with this pick, but Kwity Paye's a really good, really physical player. Just like Jacob said, the Dolphins, we discussed it earlier, but the Dolphins need to go probably find some late first-round talent when it comes to the D-line, especially D-end spot. So I like this pick for the Dolphins. I think there's a lot of value with Kwity Paye with this pick, and they're not reaching by any means, I don't think. I think Kwity Paye is a really good player, so I agree.
With the 19th pick, you have the Washington football team taking Rashad Bateman.
I heard they're actually taking votes now for a new team name.
Really?
They're taking
I heard they were considering keeping it, the football
team.
They
probably will for this season, but we'll see.
Yeah, Bateman is a physical receiver out of Minnesota. He's a great route runner, and I think he'll pair well alongside Terry McLaurin and be a good target for years to come for whoever their next quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's between Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke. So I definitely, those two guys are going to need all the help they can get. I mean, Fitzpatrick's 30-some years old, and Taylor Heineke, this is his second season really playing. So offensively, if you look at their offensive stats last year, they were one of the worst teams when it comes to points scored. They were running really a two quarterback system with Haskins and then Alex Smith, who later got hurt in the season. Haskins had to come back in. Haskins got into some trouble with some COVID protocols.
Got himself cut.
And got cut. So they were playing with Taylor Heineke, who was on the practice squad at the beginning of the season. He was starting in a playoff game against Tom Brady and the Bucs. So they definitely need to go out and get some of those guys help, whoever their quarterback is. McLaurin, obviously probably the best receiver in the NFC East, arguably.
I agree.
And he is the only weapon they have. I mean, Logan Thomas kind of sparked.
He played well, but
really, Logan Thomas sparked last year.
You play against the Washington football team, there's one player you're game planning for.
Well, in the passing game, Gibson had a good year. They had a decent offensive line. They
Yeah.
ran the ball pretty well. But they need to go out and get a receiver to play alongside McLaurin. Rashad Bateman is really
Curtis
good.
Samuel's on there too, so that'll be a good.
That'll
be a good 3 receiver. They can.
So and Bateman's a bigger receiver. He's a 50-50 ball kind of guy.
Yeah, you got your slot.
So-
you got your slot guy in Samuel. You got your jump ball receiver, and you got your route runner speed guy. Yeah.
So yeah, I like this pick for the Washington. I mean, I don't like Washington because they're in our division, but they're hard not to root for when you got guys like Taylor Heineke playing quarterback.
With the 20th pick, this is where we're going to stop for now. We have Taven Jenkins, tackle out of Oklahoma State, going to the Bears.
Yeah, he's a beast. I've watched a little bit of tape on him. He is like when he blocks someone, he's not just trying to block them. Like he wants to inflict harm on them. It is personal for Tevin Jenkins when he blocks. And he'll probably play right tackle for the Bears, and they need help on the offensive line. David Montgomery had a pretty good year last year, and I think you get some extra help for him.
Yeah. Andy Dalton right now is QB1 in Chicago.
That's an issue by itself, but
So I'm gonna say this. We just talked about Andy Dalton being QB1. I would not be surprised if the Bears go quarterback with this pick.
who?
Whoever's left. I mean,
Trask?
Trask maybe.
Oh.
Um,
I'm not a big Trask fan, but
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the Bears. I would not
Kinda
want
missed
them
out.
rolled. I would not, if I were a Bears fan, I would not want my QB1 to be Andy Dalton, especially after watching them last.
Trubisky was overhated. I think they should
And
have resigned.
I would rather have Trubisky than Andy Dalton.
I agree.
And Trubisky wants to go be a career backup in Buffalo. So, I mean, I don't know. Whoever their quarterback is, they need help on the offensive line. They need to protect them. And Montgomery needs some help too up front. So, I think Allen Robinson re-signed their franchise tag. And I was a little surprised by that move because
They need to keep him.
well, yes, in terms of their franchise, they need to keep him. But Allen Robinson just strikes me as the kind of guy that wants a ring and would want to go to a contender.
Well, he doesn't
And-
have the choice in getting a franchise tag. It's either you play for the
yeah.
Bears or you don't play at all.
Can't you seek free agency? I thought you could request free
Because they still have the rights to you if you get franchise tag.
So, I mean, well, in that case, Allen Robinson got stuck in a horrible situation. He can request a trade now. Because he's officially a part of the roster. But he hasn't, and that just kind of tells you that he's down for the count when it comes to being a Chicago Bear. So I don't know. Just like I said, I could see them going with the quarterback here, but they offensively need to go get somebody to help. Okay, so that kind of concludes our first half, I guess, of our mock draft. We're going to conclude next week with the first round and wrap that up, and then we'll get into some early second round picks. If you haven't heard about Anchor yet, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free and there's no charge. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more music apps.
You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you'll ever need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started on your podcast today.
Okay, so now we're going to get into some NBA talk. Obviously, there's not as much to talk about. Just like I mentioned earlier in the show, it's kind of getting into the stretch of the season where a lot of teams are fighting for their playoff lives. I just kind of want to discuss a few things. Jacob, I want to get your opinion. Actually, on the Warriors. The Warriors are currently the 10 seed. Being the 10 seed right now gets you into the playoffs
they were doing the play-in.
with the play-in scenario. So, if you guys haven't heard about that, the play-in scenario is going to be kind of like a tournament where the 7 seed plays the 10 seed for a chance to get into the playoffs, and then the 8 and 9 seeds play for a chance to get in the playoffs. So, In the Western Conference, it's kind of getting a little interesting with the Warriors and the Pelicans. Those are the two teams that are fighting for the last seed, the 10 seed right now. Steph Curry is literally putting the Warriors on his back. As he does every year. But this year it's just kind of getting ridiculous.
And I think they're better than some teams above them. I think they're definitely better than the Spurs. I think they're better than the Grizzlies.
Well, Curry has missed some time, and they suck when he's out, and that's costing them some seeding. So I think if he's able to stay healthy for the remainder of the season and into the playoffs, I think they actually might get into the playoffs and win that playing game. But I like the Pelicans too. I like Lonzo. I like Zion. They actually just beat the Sixers. I believe that was Friday night. So.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, Steven Adams, but
they have some talent, but I don't know. That's Zion's team.
Yeah,
Zion went from the most overhyped to the most underrated player in the NBA pretty quickly. Like, people don't realize how well Zion is playing.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Zion. I think we talked about him a little bit around the All-Star break, and that was
he's average. He is having a better season than Jason Tatum statistically.
Yeah,
if you want to go by that reference.
Zion is also kind of like the only player on his team. He kind of does a little bit of everything. He plays phenomenal defense. One of the most physical players in the league when it comes to taking charges and things like that. He's a very, very good defender. His size allows him to, he can shoot, so he has a jump shot. His size allows him to play in the post. So I like Zion as an overall player. I don't think he was a reserve starter. He started for AD, right? In the All-Star game. Anthony Davis went down with an injury, and he replaced him in the starting lineup. So I would have to double check on that, but I do know he started. I don't know. I don't know who's going to end up in that Western Conference. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, that's kind of a different story.
It's pretty interesting. Seeds 4 through 9.
It kind of changes every night.
Yeah,
you got the Hawks. The only thing that even the 1 seed is changing every night. It seems like between the Sixers and the Nets. We'll get into that.
The only consistent team really is the Bucks at 3.
We'll get into that a little bit later. But right now, I want to talk about kind of the back end of the playoff seeds, 4 through 10. 4 seed is Atlanta. The 5 seed is Charlotte Hornets. 6 seed is Jacob's team, the Heat.
Yes, sir.
The 7 team is currently the Boston Celtics. 8 seed is the Knicks. 9 seed is the Pacers, and the 10 seed is the Bulls. So I'll start with the Hawks first. I mean, the Hawks. I like watching the Hawks because, first of all, we had Mike and New on the show a couple weeks ago, and we sat here and talked about that was the week that they fired their coach.
And the week they started playing well.
Yeah, their season before that was just going straight downhill. They fired their coach. Somehow that sparked something in their locker room. And now you're looking at them being a 4 or 5 seed in the playoffs. And I love Trae Young. I like they still have
John Collins,
Duke, Cam Reddish. Yeah, Cam Reddish, and I like him. So I'm interested. They're kind of like an underdog team. When you fire your coach halfway through the season, things don't usually always go as planned.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about the East is you look at the difference between seeds 4 to 9. There is a 3.5 game difference between all those seeds.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the Hornets are without LaMelo Ball for the rest of the season. That is going to hurt.
They're still a really fun team.
They are. I love watching the Hornets. I started to watch them because of LaMelo this season, and then he went out with an injury. But I still have a lot of respect for Gordon Hayward. I love what he's doing. I have a lot of respect.
Bridges.
I like Rozier. I hated him when he was with the Celtics, but when he's with the Hornets, he's just so fun to watch.
Miles Bridges.
Bridges is a human highlight reel when it comes to dunks. So they're a fun team to watch. They have a young coaching staff, so that'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. The Heat, Jacob, your team, they kind of
Maybe they're 5 seed last year. We'll be all right. But I mean, Victor Oladipo went down with an injury.
yeah.
We'll be
So
all right.
we'll see. We'll see how that plays out as well. The Celtics, I just kind of want to touch on them. They're having a horrific year. The Sixers just beat them by 20 in their own building, and I don't know.
You can tell there's a lot of tension in that locker room.
I don't understand what is the problem though, because last year they really don't. They have basically the same team as
Minus
they did
Gordon
last season.
Hayward, who was hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Gordon Hayward, and he played like a minor role last year with them. Like it wasn't like he was a key player. I mean, he was, but he wasn't a major part of their.
Just a role player.
Yeah, and same. I mean, they lost Daniel Tice, so they're playing with, I believe, Taco Falls. Seeing a lot of minutes.
They willingly got rid of Tice. So.
Well, Tice, in my opinion, was better than Taco Falls.
Yeah, I was a fan of Tice.
I think Brad Wanamaker that's the guy's name that he's starting right now at center. Let me check that. But
No, the other guy's good. I just picked him up on fantasy.
Oh yeah,
Williams. Yeah. He had a couple good
No,
games.
he's been playing well.
oh yeah, that's who I'm talking
Robert
about.
Williams.
Yeah, Williams.
But yeah, they're just struggling, and it's a shame because of how good they were last year.
It's not a shame for us.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a shame.
Yeah,
I
I don't
shouldn't say
care.
it's a shame because we're Sixers and Heat fans, but I mean,
I
hate the Celtics. I
think
hate
either of
the
us like the
Celtics.
Celtics.
And seeing them struggle is not by any means. I mean, it's not hurting me. I love seeing them lose games, and same with the Knicks. I can't stand the Knicks, but I mean, the Knicks they're a story to watch. The Celtics, it's just a shame for the NBA. I mean, I don't even know. It's not a shame.
I think
just like I said, but
think
it's just
the
like
issue,
weird
The
because
issue comes down to, their best players are Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they're really good scorers. They're shot creators. They create their own shot, but they don't really facilitate. And I mean, who's the number one facilitator on that Boston Celtics team?
what's Tatum?
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
He's really not that great of a facilitator. It's a team where they can all, I guess it would be Kemba. And Kemba's playing very bad. They can all make their own shots, but they don't really create shots for each other. And I think that's the biggest issue with Boston.
Can we talk about the Lakers game last night?
Talk about the Lakers being the 5 seed.
Lakers
Won.
just beat up on the Nets.
Yeah, that's all.
Well, this is what I was going to
This
talk
is
about.
Peyton's
So,
validation
okay.
for the Sixers.
all right, I just want to start by saying this: the Sixers are the 1 seed right now, right? They're tied. They have
Yes.
the same exact record as the Nets right now. The conference record is the only thing keeping them in first. I have a couple friends that are Nets fans, and they all want to talk about how good their roster is. I am going to be the first one to admit the Nets have the best super team, best roster in the NBA.
On paper.
Yeah, on paper. However, those guys are never, I said this before, and I will continue to say it until they prove me wrong. Those guys
And they
will
will.
never, ever, ever be healthy at the same time.
I wouldn't give up on them yet.
I'm not giving up on
them. They're the number.
Yeah,
tied
they're
for the
still the
But
number
I
one.
mean,
I just love seeing them
I can't
lose.
see them.
I just love
Go
seeing them lose.
I do.
I
Just
can't.
straight up.
I can see them. They're gonna win it all if they're
No.
staying healthy. There's nobody beating them, bro.
There's
I mean, they're just so good.
there's
They're
no-
so talented.
I could try and build an all-time roster from the defensive standpoint to stop the Nets, and I would still struggle to stop them.
The only thing, well, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Jacob. They give up a lot of points,
They do. Yeah.
and they don't play a lot of defense. If you look at Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, those 3 guys have weaknesses, and it's called defense. They're amazing scorers, amazing facilitators.
Durant
offensively.
was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation.
I wouldn't say Durant. But
I mean,
Kyrie
they still do lack defense. Like,
No,
they give up even when they win games.
Harden-
They're still giving up over 150.
and that's not going to
128
fly in
points
the
a game.
playoffs.
Exactly.
Their
we
defense
said
will
that a
also
couple weeks
tighten
ago.
up in the playoffs. So.
But then
Yeah.
again, they've only played 6 or 7 games since they got Harden, with the trio of Harden, Kyrie, and Durant. And last night they got KD back. That was a huge story, right? They lost by 20 to the LeBron and AD less,
And Kuzma.
and they lost by 20 to the Lakers, who are the 5 seed in the Western Conference.
That's really interesting.
And I will never ever complain about a Nets loss because I can't stand the Nets.
The Western.
But you have to be able to get it done when you got KD and Kyrie. I mean, come on, bro.
The
Like,
Western.
that's a embarrassment.
Going over to the Western Conference, I think it's really interesting. I think it's more interesting than the East.
Oh, it
Just
is
because I mean the amount of
I
good
like
teams
watching-
is better in the West.
I like watching. I mean, every Western Conference. I like the Clippers. I like the Lakers. We talked about the Warriors as an underdog. I like them.
I actually just saw the Celtics ended the game with the Nuggets on a 40-8 run.
Wow.
That's crazy. As we're talking about,
And they
Celtics are
lost.
bad.
Did they win?
No, they won. I
The
believe.
Celtics won.
I think so.
Yeah, the Celtics
It was
won.
48 to run.
48-8 run. Yeah, they won.
Yeah. And the Nuggets are. Oh yeah, they won by 20. The Nuggets are a team. What? They're second in the.
And
West.
Kyrie's
fourth.
going to be out tonight, too.
Oh my
He's
gosh,
out.
they're just never healthy.
Well,
bro.
if we
They
wanna
will
talk-
never be healthy.
Talk about the Nuggets.
Marcus Aldridge is also out.
Possible MVP frontrunner now, Nikola Jokic.
And wait, I want to talk about the Lakers, right? LeBron and AD have been out for 3 weeks now, 4 weeks. They just picked up Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond goes out in the first game and gets hurt. Now he's out. It's kind of like the same thing with the Nets, except the Lakers I could see coming back from this. Like, it's LeBron, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can never overlook LeBron.
I don't think you can overlook KD.
I will.
Kyrie and
I am overlooking them right now because I know for a fact that they will never play.
They
They
will.
will
in the
never
playoffs.
play a regular season game.
I don't care. I do not care if they play a regular season game together for the rest of the year. That just does not affect my.
I just love seeing
it's,
them lose.
It's not debatable who the best roster in the league is.
I never.
It is.
I don't think it is either. I will admittedly
And
say
those
that,
are 3 guys who have had playoff success.
I will admittedly say that the Nets are the best team on paper in the NBA. But then again, you have to show the rest of the league that by winning games.
They have. They're not a bad team, but they have
They're
the
up.
same record as the
You-
Sixers. By no means are they.
The Sixers actually
Not
kind of have
winning
an
games.
excuse because the Nets have no excuse. If one of those 3 guys are healthy, you got to win. Am I wrong about
I don't
that?
know about one.
Especially 2.
2, yeah.
And Harden and Kyrie have been healthy for a couple weeks now. They've been without KD, and now KD comes back, and all of a sudden Harden goes down. It's just unreal how those guys they can never play together. And I don't know if it's kind of like an ego thing. I don't know if it's legit. Kyrie, I mean, what's wrong with him tonight? His feelings are hurt because they lost by 20 last night? I mean, come on. Like, it's just like I said, I don't know if it's because of their egos are so big that, I mean, they can't play a game together. I mean,
I don't
that's
know
just
about
ridiculous. And, I mean, you look at the Sixers, I will admittedly say that the Sixers really suck without Embiid. And that's why they're kind of on the teeter-totter right now with Brooklyn for first place. It's because they sucked with Embiid out. They didn't suck. They were finding ways to win games, but it just wasn't the same. They didn't play very good defense. Their offense was not scoring as many points as they're used to. And, I mean, they caught them a little bit, caught them up a little bit with the Nets.
Yeah, I think the regular season in general is pretty overrated in the NBA.
I mean, I
Doesn't
don't, because it
really-
kind of gives you a sense of how these teams are going to
The
play.
regular season means about as much to me as, I don't know. It's just not important
We'll see.
to me.
We'll
when
see. Because in a couple weeks here, when the playoffs start, the Nets are going to have to really hone down on who is egotistical and who is legitimately hurt. Because, I mean, you don't have a break between the regular season and the playoffs. Playoffs start, a day after the regular season ends. So if these guys are legitimately hurt, they're not going to be healthy for the playoffs, and that's fine by me because I can't stand the Nets. I also want to talk about the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks kind of fell apart.
Yeah. Randall's still playing well, but other than that, I mean, Emmanuel quickly's been playing all right, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. The Knicks are a team that I don't like. Randall is a guy that has been in the league for a little while now. He's a guy that's kind of hard not to like when he's playing well. So I have kind of some respect for him. I don't have much respect for him because he took an all-star spot away from Tobias Harris.
Because he played better than Tobias Harris in every statistical measure.
I don't even know if he's playing. Tobias Harris might be averaging more points right now. I mean, I honestly don't know.
Well, you can't count games after the All-Star break.
I know, but I'm just saying that just kind of goes to show. Because at the All-Star break, their numbers were not that far apart. Tobias Harris was the third best player on his team, and he was almost keeping up with Julius Randle, who is by far the best player on his own team. So, Tobias Harris is a good player. I mean, there's no way around that. Just the same thing as Julius Randle. He's a good player. There's no way around that. I just feel like Tobias Harris, I'm not trying to be biased. I mean, if Tobias Harris played for...
Not trying, but yet...
I mean, if Tobias Harris played for, let's say, the Nets, who I can't stand, and he was putting up similar numbers like he is now, it would be hard to not say that he should have been an all-star over Julius Randle.
I disagree with that.
I don't, so... okay, so I guess that kind of wraps up our NBA talk. Okay, so we're going to get into some MLB talk now. I know, Jacob, you don't know much about Major League Baseball, but we talked about this a little bit last week with opening day last week. The Phillies have played, I believe, 8 games. They play tonight. So they're 5-3.
A bit better than the Marlins.
Jacob's Marlins are, 2-6?
2-6.
So,
oof. It's all right. Rough start to the season, but we'll be back.
Yeah. I just want to talk. Jason, you're a Phillies fan as well, so you can jump in whenever you're ready. But
the bullpen.
Yeah, we'll talk about the bullpen first. So, I mean, okay, so the bullpen pitched well. They pitched well last weekend against the Braves, and that's sweet.
Oh, yeah, they pitched very well.
But they
just fell apart.
Yeah, they kind of fell apart this past week in the Mets series. So
it's kind of looking like last year, but
I don't know. It's difficult to say. I think it's too early in the season to say whether they're going to be good or not. I mean, a lot of guys are pitching. They're still trying to find innings. They're still pitching.
And what makes it worse, Archie Bradley is on the
10-day DL. So Archie Bradley. For those of you that don't know, he is probably the Phillies' best pitcher out of the bullpen. He just they just put him on a 10-day injured list. And they brought up JoJo Romero, who is the guy that crushes the cans before he goes out into the field. So, I don't know. How the Phillies are going to fare without Archie Bradley, but we'll see. I know. Just a quick shout out to my trainer, Chris Palmer, who is he's a huge Yankees fan. Every time I'm in the gym, he's in there. We're always talking baseball. So he thinks we talked about this the other day. He thinks that the Phillies should target some bullpen pitching, maybe even another fourth starter.
I mean, they should have in free agency.
But in the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I think Matt Moore. Think about it. These are the second times around the rotation for some of these guys.
Yeah.
Zach Eflin, who is the third starter in the rotation, he gets his second start tonight against the Braves, and I believe it's.
I think he'll pitch well.
Trying to avoid a sweep tonight.
I think he'll pitch well. Yeah.
They're trying to avoid a sweep, so I don't know. I don't know how tonight's going to go.
I mean,
hoping for that time.
Real Muto's been hitting very well.
Real Muto
Same with
has
Hoskins.
been swinging well. Harper hit his first home run last night of the season. Hoskins has been unbelievable.
Surprisingly.
This past week in terms of hitting the baseball, he has the highest average on the team. I think he did.
Real Muto does.
Real Muto. Well, Hoskins had it going into this weekend series.
Yeah.
So Hoskins was batting over 400 before this weekend. So.
He's batting .313.
Okay, so his average dropped a bit, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes because this is the second time they've played the Braves in the last week. So they swept them last week, and now they're trying to avoid being swept themselves today. We'll see how that fares out for him. Nola has yet to pick up a win, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is. He didn't have much control when who did he pitch?
He pitched last opening day, obviously, against the
opening
Braves.
day, and
they were up 2-0, and he gave up a game-tying home run before being pulled, so he didn't get the win for that game. But he pitched again on Thursday. They played Friday. They played Friday, and he pitched. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
I don't know. He'll turn it around though.
Let me look at that. Because maybe Eflin pitched last night. I thought Eflin pitched. Let me look. Yeah, Eflin pitched last night. I thought he pitched today. So the Phillies lost last night 5-4. Freddie Freeman hit another home run. Bryce Harper hit a home run last night. I don't know. I mean, there's like I said, it's kind of too early in the season to discuss. I mean, who's going to be good and who's not. I mean, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, the Phillies' two best pitchers, they need to pick it up. Eflin got a win last week. Lost last. Well, he didn't acquire the loss because when he left the game, I believe they were winning. Actually, so.
Joe Musgrove threw the no-no.
Yeah.
For the Padres.
So we didn't talk about that yet, but Joe Musgrove, the no-hitter for the Padres, first ever Padres no-hitter.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's surprising when you think about how many guys have been there over the last couple of years. This year, the Padres have the chance to win it all.
For sure.
I don't know if we talked about this last week. I think this happened this past week. But Tatis, probably the best young player. Best player under the age of like 20. I don't know how old he is. I would say he's under 25.
Let me fact check.
Yeah.
But he separated his shoulder this past week swinging and missing on a pitch. And that's unfortunate. I like Tatis. It's unfortunate for the Padres, but it's unfortunate for the game of baseball.
Yeah, he's starting to become the face of the league.
Yeah, exactly. He's really the face of the league right now. And prayers up to him. I think he's out for a couple of weeks. So we'll see how that fares for them. They just have their team is just phenomenal. They have really good pitching. Clevenger, Blake Snell, Musgrove that throw the no-hitter. Their pitching staff is unbelievable. I think where's Carlos Carrasco? I think he might even be in San Diego. I could be wrong about that. But you got Hosmer in their lineup, Tatis, Machado. Those guys, they just have a good team.
They're stacked.
And they're probably my favorite.
Carrasco plays for the Mets.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Allegedly.
But, the Mets played their first. We'll talk about that a little bit
Byron
too.
Buxton. You see him?
No, what happened?
The Twins outfielder. He has 5 home runs in 8 games.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I want to talk about the Mets for a little bit because if you guys hadn't heard, the Mets and the Nationals series that was supposed to happen last week.
And their game against the Marlins.
Yeah, they that series got canceled because the Nationals came down with COVID. So the Mets' first series was this past week against the Phillies, and the Phillies took 2 of 3 games from them. DeGrom, we'll talk about this. I know this is like a major topic when it comes to Jacob DeGrom. But Jacob DeGrom was rolling. Jason, I don't know if you watched that game. I believe it was Tuesday. It was either Monday or Tuesday night. And
I don't think I got to catch it.
DeGrom was rolling through the Phillies lineup, and the Mets had like a 2-0 lead, and they pulled DeGrom at 77 pitches, and I mean I know a lot of Mets fans were upset about that, and they should be, and the Phillies actually ended up coming back and winning the game, and so yeah, the Mets are going to be an interesting team this year. They have some really good pitching. Syndergaard's out for a couple months. So we'll see. All right, so just to touch on some other sports, obviously we don't know much about golf, but the Masters is happening right now. I think today's the last day, and Matsuyama is currently in first place.
He has a nice stroke.
Yeah, he does. I really like his game, and I believe that I heard he is statistically not a great putter.
I noticed that when I watched the Masters.
He's going to be the first Japanese player ever to win the. I think it's
his stroke when he drives it. I mean, it's top notch, and that is proven in him being number one in the Masters.
Yeah, he's currently 13 under, and the second place player right now or golfer is Xander Schauffele.
And Jordan Spieth, there's a name I know.
Sir, Jordan Spieth.
He's in fourth.
Oh, he is? He came back then because he was in like seventh earlier today.
Yeah, there's a name that we know.
How about in the UFC? What happened this week?
Nothing much. Aljamain Sterling is getting surgery on his vertebrae, and a lot of people aren't happy about that because his timetable to return is like 9 months, which extends the duration.
When's the
his belt?
McGregor-Poirier fight?
It was.
I thought they set up another one.
They might be. I don't.
They set up a third one.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that goes for McGregor.
I think if he loses that, he'll be done.
He's never going to be done because he makes way too much money off of it. But I think his days being a contender could be done.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to give a quick shout out to my sister and the CV cheer team. They actually took second in states yesterday, so just kind of a quick congratulations to them. To talk about some Trinity sports.
About the baseball team.
I don't know, man. The baseball team, we're okay. We lost. We dropped 2 of 3 games this past week, so we are currently 3-2. We are 2-0 in conference play, so that's really the thing that's helping us out the most right now. We got a couple conference games this week.
Division or conference?
Conference.
Oh.
So tomorrow we have Steelton High Spire. Wednesday we have East Penn, and Friday we have Greencastle Antrim. So we have a couple tough games, couple tough conference games coming up this week. So stay tuned for that. And that kind of Jacob, just let you talk about track real quick.
Yeah. So we killed West Perry for track, and we unfortunately came out just short. I think we lost by 4 or 5 points to Big Spring, and we are going against East Penn tomorrow. So
okay,
that's our last meet before the Shippensburg Invitational that a lot of guys are going to, and yeah, should be a good week.
So that sounds good, and I just want to kind of give a quick shout out to the Trinity softball team.
They're on a tear.
Yeah, I think they might even be undefeated. But they are playing some really, really good softball right now, and I mean, I read about them. They play every day that we play. So I've been hearing that they're having a pretty good season, as well as the boys lacrosse team from Trinity. They're undefeated.
They're undefeated, yeah,
and they're having a really good season. I think they're touching double-digit goals literally every single game so far. So, quick shout out to Paul Shook. He's been playing well. Sean Madigan,
Evan Scott.
Those guys have been playing really well. Raj Chima, he's a
Cooper
sophomore.
Manley.
He's a sophomore, but he's considered a freshman in high school because they didn't have a season last year.
I mean,
So he's not considered a freshman, but he's like.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
He is a quote-unquote freshman when it comes to sports because they didn't have a season. So he's playing really well as a young kid. And Drew Godfrey is obviously tearing it up again. Quick shout-out to my boy Michael Coleman, one of my better friends. He unfortunately went down with a torn ACL. and he's out for the rest of the season. So he is a D2 lacrosse player. So quick shout out to him. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery and he's ready to go to college. So yeah, that wraps up today's episode, and thank you guys.